as we look at what it means, what's masculinity, today's world, this whole thing, excuse me, it's all fucked up. I'm sorry to cuss, but it's fucked up,
It
right? To
is.
be a man today is a mess, right? No one knows what it means to be a man anymore. And we're all walking around going,
Yep.
frustrated. And, at one point we had what it meant to be a man. And then the world came around and, the Industrial Revolution, all this stuff came around, and we all went to work. And what it means to be a man today is changing dramatically. And I know you dive into that topic quite a bit. Let's get right into it.
That's an understatement. What you just mentioned is just an understatement. You see it everywhere. Just look around you. There's, I call them eternal teenagers. Men are not men anymore. They're stuck in a situation where they look like men, but they've never accepted extremely simple truth, being that men are supposed to serve. Men are servants. So I love what you said before we started recording, because you mentioned that name, you mentioned that word a couple of times, and no truer words can be spoken, that men are supposed to serve. And we have forgotten that as men, and we're not teaching our boys that either. But this is where it starts. And I don't believe in depression. I don't believe men are depressed. I believe that men lack purpose.
Mm,
Have you ever met somebody that's purposeful that's depressed?
no,
Never.
that's
Have
right.
you ever met somebody that's depressed that has purpose? Never.
That's right. That's right.
So for most men, our purpose is to serve. Some men have higher purpose, higher serving purpose. The point of the matter is you're always serving as a man.
Yeah.
But for some men, their serving comes to their families. They need to be there and take care of their family, to put them first, because a good man is selfless, not selfish. And you look at people today, most men are selfish. We are taught to be selfish. We are taught to idolize. We're being told as men to idolize money, which no
Mm,
problem. Capitalism is the best system in which we can live in. But at the same time, if you start looking at the top of people that are extremely successful with money, they have this. They're what we call sociopath. They lack empathy. The reason they're so rich is that they're capable of making decisions and looking at people like numbers. They don't have the empathy. We're teaching our boys to idolize those men. We're teaching our boys to idolize people that are lacking empathy. And
yeah.
we wonder why our boys are confused, when I want my boys should be more inspired by a guy like Jesus Christ that is all about compassion. This is where we're so messed up. We are so screwed when it comes to the way that we think. We're idolizing the wrong things, thinking that they will bring us to a state of happiness, when happiness is a state of mind. Someday you'll be happy, someday you won't. But we also don't play in this anymore. We don't accept the fact that life sucks. You know what? Life is hard. Life sucks. Life is definitely extremely hard. And if your life sucks, you know what? It's your fucking fault. We have
Well,
no accountability, right?
later on in my early childhood, my early 20s, I met my grandfather, my father's
Mm,
father. And I met him as a man who was broken. Like I met him broken. He literally he sat out the window. He had it was in Florida, with the old jalousie windows, the little ones the little one. And he would sit out there and just stare out the window and smoke all
yep.
day.
Hmm.
And I would sit with him for days. And I'd go there and I'd sit with him, and you could just see a broken man.
Hmm.
And my judgment is that for centuries we were tribal,
Hmm.
right? We sat in circle with other men, we told stories, we guided each other. Somewhere that system broke. And now we as men, in the most confusing time there ever is. I mean, this is the most, it's wonderful, right? Look, we got so much abundance and so much stuff, but it's also more confusing than ever. And we're all out there trying to do this by ourselves. We don't get that guidance. There's not a man over the side going, hey, look, you're going to be okay. Right. Look, you're going through a tough time right now. And here's how we're going to work. We're going to walk this walk together. Right. A lot of these men are not in some tribal or some sort of supportive environment with great men who are there to support them. The ones who, in our tribal days, you needed to support the youngsters, because if you didn't, you were going to die. right? And the youngsters needed your support, or they were going to die. There was a relationship that needed each other, so the integrity of the relationship you could count on. So when they said hold the spear this way or walk this way, you could count on that was righteous communication. Today, what you're talking about is exactly right. We got men who are teaching our boys that, let's all go spend money in a club, not, and there's no like commitment to my community. There's no commitment to my environment. There's no commitment to myself. There's no, how do I eat right? All that stuff that you talk about. I love when you talk about that. So I think you're right on. Our boys are confused.
Boys are born, men are made. Men are made through trials and tribulations. Men are made through rites of passages. Men are made through being around other men that will teach them what it is to be a good man. When I was 14 years old, my dad left. He was not present prior to that. I can barely remember him. But when he left, my little brain back then of a teenager, of a 14-year-old, started looking for people to emulate, because that's what men do. Naturally, we're going to do it. And you can look, most people are unaware of this. They don't realize that that's what they're doing, but you're always seeking somebody that is, at least you believe, is better than you, somebody to look up to. But if you take me as an example, at 14 years old, what the fuck did I know about what a good man was?
That's right.
I had no idea. I had nobody around me to teach. My grandfather, both my grandfather were dead. My dad left. So who the hell did I have to look up to? And I started idolizing guys that I shouldn't have idolized. And within a year, I had dropped out of school. I was an addict. I was a thief. I was a thug. All I did was party every day. I did not care about anything. I was the biggest asshole you can think of. This is who I had become. And I was on that path for 6 or 7 years. And, my mother eventually found somebody else, and it didn't take her that long to find a good man, but it was too late. A gap of a year was enough for me to put my two middle fingers up and say, you know what? I'm not listening to you. I know better. Because deep down, I was hurt. Deep down, I needed somebody. When you consider this, when a father leaves, you're basically telling your son that you don't matter. I did not realize that when I was 14, but looking back, I'm like, man, this is what happened. When he left, I didn't know what I'm supposed to look at anymore. So what am I supposed to do? But back then, when it happened, I was 14. I'm 41, so that's 27 years ago. I was an exception. But now you look at the statistics, depending on the study that you look at, you're talking between 33% to 40% of young men grow up in a household where their fathers are not present. And don't get me wrong, I'm not blaming fathers here. I'm blaming both fathers and mothers in this situation, because unfortunately, the justice system, especially family law, is extremely biased towards women.
But even our men, even our fathers are
100%.
broken. Look, I'm with you. Look,
but it's good. But it's good to be broken. But
yeah,
it's good to be broken.
My father died young also, right? It was like he died when I was 7, but I ended up with a stepfather, and my judgment is about my stepfather. He had no idea how to be a man. He had none. He had a broken relationship with his father. He was the outcast child in his family. There was nobody that guided him, and he carried more of a feminine energy than a male energy. He taught me some things. Look, he did something. He taught me how to work hard, but he didn't have that integrity to relationship and family and create. But so in that, I feel like as we've evolved, right, the pendulum swung, and we went from this tribal experience to now we're heading to we're realizing, all right, relationships with men have broken. Now, now we got to start bringing them back, right? As we start to look at how do we want to bring that back in our community? What can we do to start that? What can we do to create, a place where men teach each other to be better men?
And what's extraordinary about this is that it is our own fault. Because if you look at the society, if you look at what men do, if we take for understanding, if we agree on the basis that men serves, that means that, look at our society. Every great society that's ever been created was created on the back of good men, on their death, their blood, their suffering, because they want to serve their family by providing them a safe environment in which they can live. Because if you look at nature is ruthless. If we
Ruthless.
if we didn't have all the protection, the police officers that we can call whenever we want, the firemen, we weren't gated from nature, we wouldn't live long. We would be in survival mode. So men have created a thriving society where it's allowing men to become weak because we're not teaching it down. We're not, because look at today, a guy I've met through podcasting, his name's Justin Garcia, and he talks about it as the aquarium effect. We all are the fishes in the fish tank, but we don't realize that there's something behind the fish tank that's taking care of everything, that built that fish tank, that's taking care of it every day to make sure that we're okay. And this is the problem, is that you have a bunch of good men to this day. There's a reason why 95% of the top 20 most dangerous jobs are done by men. Not because women can't do it. Women could easily do them. They don't want to. But we know that the higher the risk, the higher the reward, and that makes us better providers for our family. This is why we do it.
Yeah, Nico,
And
our families. I mean, if you look around, men have built this country.
everything.
I'm not. I'm here. I don't discount my wife or the women in my society have done other. Without them, we couldn't have the families or the creation. There's a whole other energy that they bring. But when I
100%.
look around Chicago, this was built on the back of some strong ass
Mhm.
men who went up and tirelessly worked their asses off to create this amazing, city. Or everywhere I go in the world, I'm not trying to say women don't do something, but this world has been built on the back of some very, very powerfully strong men, and we bring it. We do bring it. We bring it. Now, that's the next. I love that part of it. Look, we bring it. Now, the next piece is we're all feeling we're all like all messed up. There's no one there saying, "Hey, that's pretty good." Right? I mean, there's this next part that's lagging because now the physical part that took to build this, some of that's changing, right? Some of that now we have this intellectual mind, the physical body isn't as needed as it was before. Although there's still a lot of strong men building some great stuff. Um, this now is intellectual society we've become, right? This is confusing for us because our value in that strong body is being discounted a little bit with this whole new mental world that we're in.
But that's because we're over specialized. If you look at today's mentality, we want to specialize in everything because it means we're more intelligent. And this is one thing I absolutely refuse to do. I'm a jack of all trades, and I'm happy to be a jack of all trades because I'm capable of stepping back and saying, this is the way your body works. It's connected with your mind. That mind is connected with your spirit. And I can see how, if you look at everything around you, everything's connected. What you do will eventually impact me. We're 3 degrees of separation. This is something most people don't understand, but we're separated by 3 people. Everybody on this planet, it's argued, that is separated by 3 people. That's nuts when you think about it. Tell me that we're not connected somehow when you can probably connect with anybody in the world if you really want to. So this is our problem. We've come to a place that, yes, our body is less and less required on a day-to-day base because we've created a world where everything's taken care of. On, go back 200 years ago, everybody needed to be physical.
That's right.
Everybody did.
That's right. Everybody, men and women.
It's just today you don't need to because there's other people to do it for you. But the work is still there. It's just there's people that specialize in that work. And this is, when we went from being tribals just walking around, and we decided to be in the same spot, when we actually developed agriculture, we realized that if we take certain people, we specialize them in agriculture, then we can take special people. They're going to do they're going to take care of our horses. Those guys are going to take care of this. We start realizing that, hey, I can just specialize in one thing and depend on the rest of the people. And this is the problem. We depend on others so much that we forget what it takes to live. Because how many times have I wondered, and I'm very philosophical when I say about this, but I've often wondered what would happen if you couldn't call the police anymore. If you picked up your phone, you dialed 911, nothing happened. If you couldn't call the firemen anymore, if you couldn't just go to the grocery store and pick up some food. I know how to hunt. I know how to fight. I know how to handle a gun. I know how to deal with all the bad situations because I'm put it upon myself over the past 20 years to develop those skills. Same thing as I know how to build a house. I've done 2 full rentals by myself on 2 different houses. Why? Because I wanted to have the skills. I wanted to know that if shit hits the fan, I would know how to do it. So those are skills. Am I the best at what I do? Oh, hell no, nowhere close to it. But put me in a situation of survival. I've taken classes on how to survive in the woods with nothing more than a knife. So I would know how to take care of my girlfriend, how to take care of my family, how to take care of my loved ones if I had to, because I built those skills knowing that maybe one day I'll need them. I hope not,
Yeah, but
but
I mean
maybe.
that's an evaluation. I mean, knowing that piece of us, where that internal part of knowing,
Mhm.
right? To know that, all right, I've been punched in the face, right? I've been punched and I didn't die, right? I've been in some battles. I mean, some real battles. I mean, when I say battles, battles. I mean, and I've
Mhm.
survived.
Mhm.
And to know that I can battle and
Mhm.
survive, there's something about that that brings a little bit of a little bit of a knowing. Like I can stand in a room and in a place where things can get scary, and I can handle myself. And there's a gift in that. Not that I want to live that way. That is not a way I would like to live. Right. My dad died from that gunfire. He was taken early, and today I would like not, but knowing that I can, like knowing that part you talk about, knowing that I could live in the woods, no matter what happens to society, I could survive. Right. Knowing that there's something about that. That's a gift. Now, as we look at the world and men are faced with learning way more. I mean, look, it was easy to learn the survival skills when society was simple, right? I mean, look, when I had a horse and buggy and I had to go cross, and I could figure out how to hunt and forage for myself. All right, it wasn't so hard. Now today, men are on top of hunting and foraging, they got to carry a cell phone that could communicate to anybody on the planet. They've got internet connections and Wi-Fi's and cars that drive themselves, and I've got to learn taxes, and I mean the billions of other things that we have to learn that our great grandparents had no idea about. In fact, if we brought them into this now society, my judgment is we'd freak them out. I mean, look, if I handed my great grandfather this phone and go, here, go call, go call the other country, they would think this is some sort of black magic, right? So it's not it's not unrealistic that we're a little bit overwhelmed by the amount of change that's happening. How, in the middle of overwhelming, how do we what are the fundamentals as we go through this? By the way, it's about to get 10x with AI and all the stuff's about to. It's about to get 10x to where we are now, right? What are the steps that we take as men to stay center lined? So as we trudge this road, right, this ever changing road, where's the center line that we create for men to say, oh, look, let's stay here center lined. What are the things? What are the skills that we need to do? What are the ideas that we need to hold on to stay centered during this ever changing journey?
Before I answer this, I'd say that if you took somebody from today and you put them in your grandparents'
Yeah,
world, they would freak out too.
yeah,
But
that's
I, but I guarantee you that the person your grandparent would process this world easier than
mm,
we do the other way around. Simply that they would understand that this is not needed. They
mm,
wouldn't even pick it up.
that's right.
There's a psychologist, I can't remember what her name is, but she was explaining how to this day she still sends letters to some of her friends around the world. And that's because if you look at the way we deal with information, we get information and we want to respond right away because we're so connected, we're so used, it needs to get done now. And we lose the caring with that information. Like I have my mentor, we we will exchange. We won't talk for months, and then out of the blue, he sends me an email, or I send him an email. Massive emails. They're super long, and it will take me a week to respond to it. I will put my thoughts into it, as in, okay, let me share with that guy what I'm really about, and that's what she speaks about when she's talking about her letters. The anticipation. Oh, I sent you a letter. I took my time to write that letter. When I received yours, I took the time to write it because it matters. I know that you're not going to get it right away, so I can take my time to do it. You're not waiting on that information right now, but I get to open up. I get to tell you things that I probably wouldn't think about doing over text because I'm not putting the time into putting a message. I'm simply, yep, I'm responding to it. So there's beauty in taking being able to step back and say, you know what, maybe I don't need this. You know, I'm a
Mhm.
content creator. I post more than probably anybody you know in your life,
Mhm.
yet my girlfriend spends more time on her phone than I do.
Mm.
When it's a certain time at night, I take my cell phone, I leave it in a different room than where I am
Mm.
on purpose, so that whatever I do is not centered around this because it's too easy. It's on us to build the understanding that we are distracted. And as I was saying, 5 years ago, all I was doing is working, 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 working. Like I would come back from work, I'd take a nap for 15, 20 minutes. Then I was teaching martial art that night. So my days would start somewhere around 3 o'clock in the morning. They would finish around 10 at night. Wash and repeat. That's what I would do every day. I would, on Saturdays, obviously my days would start a bit later, but I would still be always busy doing something. And this were my days. COVID happened. Now, all of my day, I was in the city just because my customers were in the city. Because I'm a guy that comes from a super small town. I love small towns. I love to be away from people. But I'm an extrovert. So I love to be around people too. This is how I recharge my battery. So it makes sense that I was in sales. But in Canada, the restrictions were brutal. So we weren't able to meet face to face anymore.
Mm.
So for the first time, so now I was faced with a decision. I'm like, okay, I have a property in the middle of nowhere that I rent. It's on Airbnb. It's think about the most Canadian thing you can think of, like log house, top of a mountain overlooking a valley. This is the property, right? And so I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, I can't meet my customers face to face anymore. I can't teach martial art anymore because the gyms are closed. I can't even hit the gym anymore. So what can I do? You know what? I'll get rid of my place in the city and I moved to the woods. And I ended up spending 2.5 years there. I spent the first 1.5 years I was there by myself. And you know why I did it? Two reasons. One, because I had no reason to be in the city and I wanted to get away from the craziness. And two, it scared the shit out of me.
Oh yeah.
As an extrovert,
Oh, be
like
quiet.
when I'm telling you that the street that I live on, I have three neighbors that are further than me. We know every single car that goes into that domain. And it's the type of place that if you don't belong there, somebody's taking a gun out and like, hey, bro, get the fuck out of here. Do you belong here? No, fuck off.
That's right.
So, but you could walk here. I could walk my dog off leash on the main road and not meet anybody. Like I could spend days without even seeing my neighbors. So I would see people at the grocery store that was 25 minutes away. I would meet my neighbor. Funny enough, I would meet my neighbor more at the grocery store than I would do where he lived. So I isolated myself on purpose to say, okay, I'm an extrovert. What can I develop? Being alone. This removes all the distractions from my life. And outside of my work, I can say, you know what? I'll do something else. I'll spend time by myself because think about it. We're overstimulated today to a point where we're never bored. Every time we're bored, we're trying to fill it with something to do.
I haven't been bored. I have not been bored. I mean, I have some distraction everywhere in my life.
Mhm.
I mean, look, if I'm watching a TV show and there's a commercial, I'm on my phone. If I'm not on my phone, I answer an email. If I'm not answering an email, just there's constant stimulation. That the ability to stop and be bored and have that opening for thinking, I have to cause it. I've got to literally go into a place like you talked about and create a little isolation from me and devices and things.
And yet, if you look at one of the, they rate kids, if they look at children, the way that they can tell if they're going to be geniuses is at their creative aspect of their minds. If they're capable of creating, they can look at kids that are extremely creative and say those kids are going to be geniuses. Our education system completely destroys 95% of them
Yeah,
because of the way that it is, because it prevents you from being creative. And we won't get into the topic that it's done on purpose, but that being said, when are you the most creative? When you're bored, when you don't have anything to do and you're just left to yourself, and you start thinking about a lot of stuff that you never take time to think about, whatever comes up to mind.
that's right.
Why do you think meditation is so great?
That's right.
I meditate every day. Why? Because I'm just with myself. A great meditator once said, let it come, let it be, let it go. Whatever
Mm.
comes, let it live, breathe it, eat it, smell it. And then when you're done with it, on to the next thing. It's fine. But we don't even take this anymore. You know how many ideas I get from my meditations? I'll be at the gym. I just finished working out. I'm meditating and I'm like, uh-oh. I'm like, I wake up the meditation, grab my phone, and I start writing stuff. I'm like, oh man, I can't forget this.
Well,
Why?
I mean, finding that discipline, finding that time
Mhm.
where a man can slow down and disconnect. I mean, when you talk about walking away from your phone, I can tell you for the last 5 years, I have never been without my phone.
Mhm.
I mean, I can't. Maybe maybe a couple of hours in the ocean, maybe a couple of hours when I'm swimming somewhere.
Yeah.
But rarely is my phone not within my arm's reach to me. I have so addicted to that. I mean, when you talk about going to bed with it and done the room, I live. My bedrooms are upstairs, and I have tried for years to leave my phone downstairs,
Yeah.
and my addictive brain talks
Mhm.
me out of it every single time. I've done it a couple times. I can count on one hand how many times I've done it, and the truth is, I talk myself back in. I'm like, no, I got to bring it upstairs. I got to do it, and it's nuts. It's literally, it's such. I felt the same way when I was an addict. When I was drinking, I
You
would
still
take.
are.
Yeah, I'm still just now. It's just not drugs and alcohol. It's my phone. It's
Mhm.
noise. It's constant feeding. That addict behavior is still. It's still in me. It's just changed devices. It went from drugs and alcohol to
Mhm.
emotional sobriety to even the phone's got some distraction there. But it's so I think as men we're going through this time where we have all of this distraction, finding those skill sets now. How do we find, you know, the kind of groups and men and the places to continue to guide me to find that center line, right? To remind me, look, hey, look, scrolling all night is the direct opposite of center lining yourself in meditation. It's
100%.
scrolling at night. Uh, you know, uh, uh, the 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 average man today can see more naked women
Mhm.
in 15 minutes than the richest kings of the world could see in their entire lifetime,
Mhm.
right?
100%.
Right. And the amount of
100%.
stimulus stuff. And what does that do when you try to be in a relationship with a woman and she doesn't stimulate us like that anymore? You're like, huh, what's wrong with you? I'm not stimulated by you because I'm so overstimulated by the other stuff that's facing us. So, when we look at all of these inputs that are coming at us, right? Where is it other than your show does a pretty good job of diving into these topics and noticing that, right? Where I can work on a topic and notice that these are the impacts to manhood, to the masculine man today, right? As we look at the impacts of what's happening and how it's pushing us off center line. And no wonder we're all walking around going, right? Just with that confused face, just there's so much more to deal with, and we haven't been trained, or we're not supporting each other in noticing that. Hey, let's let's take a deep breath.
You need to be accountable. Look at
Well,
every single problem in society today. I can point you somebody that did not want to do their jobs.
yeah, but that's confusing, right? I mean, but here, when you ask me to be accountable, look, I get here. I know what you mean by that.
Mhm.
But when I talk to the average man about accountability,
Yep.
so what is it? You want me not to speed? You want me to make sure I pay my bills? Is you want to make sure that I put bread on the table for my family? Is that accountability?
Sure. But that's not the topic of accountability I'm talking about.
All right, there you go. What does it mean to be accountable?
Before we even get there, I don't think that's why the comfort zone is so dangerous.
Ooh.
Because if you look at everybody knows of the comfort zone, but they don't understand what it actually is. The comfort zone is you're hurting, but not enough to change. This is what the comfort zone is. And if I look through my life at the beginning of my 20s, I decided to change. I decided to stop being an addict, to go back to school, to do something with my life instead of going deeper, deeper down the rabbit hole in which I found myself in, or sorry, let me rephrase that I put myself in. I decided that I would do something different. I would take myself out and I will make the changes that I needed to do in order to become better.
But we don't
Well,
know. But most men can't see that. I mean, Nico. I mean,
that this,
I was
hold on. This is where I'm going with this is pain and suffering are the greatest of teachers. We need to embrace pain and not trying to be distracted. We need to embrace. So for any men out there right now that doesn't feel like they have their place, what I want you to do is to call your boss, book 2-week vacation, rent a cabin in the middle of nowhere, leave your phone behind, bring a couple of books that you've been too lazy to read, but you've wanted to read forever. Go by yourself, go hard by yourself, go be bored for 2 weeks at a time. You'll see what happens to your mind when you're actually removing those distractions, because they're all there. We're all hurting. Every single person on this planet is hurting to a certain extent, but we never face it. How can you ever face that you're hurting if all you do is be distracted? You never get to sit down and realize how much of an asshole you are.
Well, I mean, but men are. I mean, when you say that to go face that, I mean, the whole reason why look, the whole reason why I got high and why I got drunk
Mhm.
was because that was my medicine.
Of
My
course it
my,
is.
my rabid brain, my
Mhm.
rabid brain was so overwhelmed by life that getting high and getting drunk was like, oh,
Mhm.
I mean, here it started off. It was the easy button,
100%. Yep.
right? And then I kept hitting that button,
Yep.
and then I started pounding the button, and it couldn't get me back to feeling good again. And
But that's
somewhere in
because you're
there,
distracted.
well, I just the getting high and getting drunk worked for a minute,
Mhm.
but then somewhere it didn't work.
Mhm.
Right? I couldn't get to calm. I couldn't get to peaceful. Right?
Exactly.
Life got overwhelming because all the things I distracted when I was getting high, and getting drunk, all the things I blew off, the relationships, the financial world, all the stuff that was impacting my real life while I was high and drunk. It got more overwhelming. Right? So all
Mhm.
of a sudden, I've added this whole thing on there. And when we look at this, my judgment is I can't get myself out of it. The problem is my addictive brain has a justifier,
Mhm.
right? I talked myself into it. I don't think I can talk myself out of it. I believe that we need others to talk ourselves out of it. In fact, that left to my own devices, I will talk my shit right back into doing it again. In fact, I'll justify it, and it doesn't want my Fred in my head, that asshole that's up in my head talking to me. He does not want to change.
No.
He wants the status quo. He wants to keep
Change
it
is
going.
hard. Change is
Well,
hard.
he'll make it. It's okay. It's
Yep.
it'll justify. I mean, every Monday night on Sunday night, I'd say I meant it. I'm not going to drink this week. That's it. This week I'm going to bring it together. It's 60 minutes would come on. Tick 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 tick. 60 minutes would come on. I'm like, this week I'm going to get my shit together. That's all I need
Yeah.
is a week of getting my shit together. And
Yep.
Monday night,
You're drinking.
I'm drinking. I'm like, God damn it. And I'll
Yep.
just have a drink. And then all of a sudden it'll be
Mhm.
2 o'clock in the morning and I'm going home again. And the next morning I'm taking Adderall to go to work. And then I'm wondering why I'm not as effective. I couldn't
You're
have
not
it.
hurting enough.
Yeah. Well,
You're
I
not
mean,
hurting enough.
so the question became, I had to get to a point where it got bad,
Mhm.
right? And I needed to step off the planet, like you talked about.
Mhm.
But what's really important when I stepped off the planet, went in the treatment, was I had people there who started to guide me and gave me the gift of looking at the way that I was thinking, maybe causing the life that I was living.
Mhm.
Right. And where is that? Where is that in a man's life today? Where are those gifts? Where are those places where a man can see that the life that they're living, they're causing it, and that there's another way of living, right? There's another way of doing that stuff you talk about, getting accountability, right? Courageousness, all the factors you have of creating great masculinity.
You know, the one thing you said beautifully, and I couldn't agree with you more, is the part where you need to hurt more. And we're not allowing ourselves to hurt because we're always distracting. And we have, as you also said, we don't have anybody keeping us accountable for our actions either. There's nobody in our lives for the average person that will, I'm the asshole you need in your life. But we don't have a lot of those.
No,
Like,
I mean, most of our friends are most of my friends are a bunch of pusses, right?
don't
They're
come
all
up to me with a problem. I'll call
yeah,
you out and I'll tell you what the problem is. And I'll probably end up doing this. You're the problem. Now,
yeah.
that
But
being,
how many of your friends are willing to do that? How many of my friends are a bunch of pusses and they'll placate the way that I'm being? In fact, my judgment is I found friends who justified my behavior. Right? They were
100%,
I hung out with addicts, so
they
they did what I
justified
did.
themselves.
Yeah, that's
by
right.
just so
That's right.
I'll justify you because
That's
if you do it, that makes it okay for me to do it.
yeah. Yeah,
You
yeah, but so it's tough to find that rigorous group of men or that rigorous group of people to live around where, and a lot of us went to religion, and in religion there was something there, but something felt wrong, right? It wasn't,
possible?
it felt a little condescending. So a lot of
Mhm,
us in religion were like, all right, it's something's there, but not all there. There's
mhm.
parts of it that we loved the community, we loved it, but there was something like eating meat on
Something
Fridays. Who
missing.
gives a shit, right? I mean, come on, guys. I mean, there's some weird guy in a dress up there that messed me up a little bit. I'm like, all right, guys, I got it. You got this going on. There is a higher power, but some of this doesn't ring true to my soul. But somewhere when I'm around great men,
Mhm,
right? I sit in I sit in a couple of men's circles. I'm a part of MKP or Mankind Project. These circles of men that I stand in that really stand and hold me accountable,
mhm.
right? Where I'm held to stand in my accountability, right? To create a life to have a life that's worth living. My judgment is I need that support group around me
Mhm.
that will help guide and support me through the changes I'm about to go through.
100%. If you don't know where to start doing martial arts.
Yeah, right here. A good sensei that gives you a gift of
Yeah.
discipline, right?
If you look at coaches, like not only martial art coaches, but just good coaches as a whole, they take a shared passion, like let's say basketball, and they will teach you life lessons through your shared passion. So they know you like basketball, they're a basketball coach, they'll teach you how to become a better basketball player, but really what they're doing is teaching you how to become a better human being, how to become a better man. So if you don't know where to start, because most men out there don't know where to start. So that's why I say martial art, because it's a win-win solution. You're finally putting your body through rigorous training that you need to start building the building blocks to become a better person, but you're surrounding yourself by people that are already doing it.
They're
So
doing hard things, right? They're doing
exactly.
discipline and hard things.
And this is where your mindset's going to stem from.
That's
Build
right.
your body so that you can build your mindset through it. And if you're not doing it right now and you don't know where to look at a martial arts school.
Yeah,
Look
right,
at
right.
a great martial arts school. You will find men there that are working to get better. And
I
even if
agree.
it's just on the physical part, this is how you gain access to your mind. I can't repeat this enough. And there's martial arts school everywhere. And I put anybody to the challenge. If you can't find one, contact me. I'll find you somebody. I know people all around the world that runs martial arts school. I'll find you a place. If you don't know where to start, text me on whatever platform you're on. I'll happily find you something. And this is all, stick to it. Stick to it for a few months, and I guarantee you that within a year you probably will quit your job or you'll have a promotion, you'll start your own business. It's exponential when you start taking control of your body to say, this is what I'm doing. A friend of mine was recording a podcast with Grant Cardone, and Cardone looked at him and he's like, hey bro, do you have a six-pack? You have abs? He's like 24 years old. He's shredded. He's like, of course I do. And he's like, do you know that 1 out of 10 Americans a millionaire, but less than 1% of Americans have visible abs? It's harder to be in my physical shape than it is to make $1 million.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh yeah.
you know what you need to be in shape? Nothing. This. You just need to
Yeah.
do it. You just need to fucking do it. Start watching what you eat. You don't even need to go to the gym. I just like to be muscular. I feel good with muscle mass on. I love it. But I don't need to be muscular in order to be in shape. I can just eat well. Stop treating your body like a dumpster and start treating it with the respect that it deserves. We treat our motorcycles our cars better than we do our own bodies.
But a lot of us can't see it though. I mean, the judgment I have is that when you're an addict and
Mhm.
food addiction in our
Oh
country
boy. Oh yes.
it's over. It's out. I mean, look, you don't even know that you're competing. I had to literally go through it, and I've gone through ups and downs with sugar throughout my life. And to me,
Oh yeah.
sugar is, I got
The
through
worst.
drugs, I got through alcohol,
The
I got
worst.
emotional sobriety.
The worst.
Sugar has been one of those ones where I just had a relapse on sugar right before the holiday, right? I really treat it just like a relapse of drugs.
Mhm.
I, had a little bit it started with some carbs, and then all of a sudden it was a hamburger, and then all of a sudden it was, once the carbs started, it
Yeah.
became the slip. It's like an alcoholic. One is too many, and a thousand is never enough. And I was just driving back from Florida, and I mean I mean handfuls of freaking chocolate covered freaking banana chips, and I'm like, holy shit! I
Yep.
just went off the deep end.
Mhm.
My trip from Florida here probably cost me 5,000 calories of crap food. And I
Mhm.
got here. I'm like, all right, why do I feel it? It took me 2 or 3 days to get
Yep.
back in it. And now I'm trying to get back in it. And it's like literally moment by moment. Everything I have to look at today, I got to go back. And it's been, let's see, today's
100%.
Tuesday, and I've been back since Saturday. So in 3 days, my brain keeps going to sugar, sugar, sugar. It's just like it was my early days of recovery. I
Mhm.
have to really work on it one moment at a time, one meal at a time, because once you break it, like I didn't even know that. Like so look, I think that's the gift of having to look at it, because men are like, well, I can't get it. Why I'm still fat? Well, some of us you don't realize you're up against a society that puts sugar on the front row of every place that you go on the planet. I mean, every year you walk into any store, the front row of everything you have is
Mhm.
sugar, 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 sugar. Everything we eat in American society, sugar, 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 sugar. Right? And you're wondering why? Well, why do I keep still be? Why can't I see my own abs? Is because you're freaking addicted to sugar,
Mhm.
and you don't even know it. Right?
Nope.
They can't see it. Why does my body hurt? Why am I inflamed? Why do so many Americans look like they're so over inflamed? It's because we're just we're digesting and eating stuff that's kicking our ass.
We, that's one thing that my mother taught me from a very young age is make your own food. My mother was a big fan of making food from scratch. We did not go to restaurants. We did not, if I wanted sweets, it was something that I needed to go to my grandmother's. She would have all the stuff that my mother would never allow in the house. And I look at my girlfriend. She's Italian, like she's from immigrant parents. Like her parents are from Italy, and her mother cooks. So does she. This is one of my favorite things about her. She cooks everything. She does my bread now from scratch.
Mm.
She makes me bread from freaking scratch because she knows it's so much better for me than to eat the pre-made stuff. And this is the thing, right? We Yes, we're extremely distracted, but we don't take pride or take pride. As much as I don't like the word, that's the best one I can think of, but we don't take pride into of our body into treating it into the temple that it's supposed to be. My body's an engine. And this weekend I allowed myself to eat a lot of crap. Like I have a sugar problem. I'm normally very good on it, but this is the type, I can't eat a piece of pie. I'm 210 pounds. I eat the pie.
Yeah,
Like when I start eating and there's whipped
I got
cream
it. Yeah,
and there's ice cream on.
it's like just like cocaine.
Yeah.
You might as
Yeah.
well chop the shit up and snort it. I
Yeah.
mean, it's just like a drug. Yeah,
And
once it opens, once that
yeah.
floodgate opens, I get the fuckets.
And I keep myself between 10 to 12% body fat. So I'm normally always in good shape. Just a weekend like that, I can tell I've gained weight because I keep it normally so lean that now I feel like crap. Like the next few days, I'm going to feel meh. Just body wise, I'm like, man, I got to work harder at the gym because of what I did to myself. So the whole goal is to be conscious, to realize these things, because again, that's why you always start with the body. But at the same time, if you're surrounded by people that eat crap, that are sugar addicts, just like you were saying earlier, this is where it's going to become difficult. What are you ready to do in order to take care of yourself? What are you ready to do in order to go from where you are right now to where you want to go? What are you ready to do? I've been away from Canada between the US and Mexico for 14 months now. That means that every single holiday, my girlfriend and I spend them alone, just by ourselves, just so that we could chase my purpose, so that we could do what I'm supposed to be doing right now. That means I have no interaction with my friends. She has had no interactions with her family outside of a phone call, which she would see her family physically every week, no matter where we were. So we're 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 ready to sacrifice this in order to get better. because you know this. The more successful you become, the more and more you become alone. The less and less there's people around you because they don't reflect the path that you're on. And this is what's another thing that's extremely hard, and that's part of the comfort zone, is the company that you keep. When we tell you that you are the sum of the five-person closest to you, this is an absolute truth. So if you're surrounded by people that eat junk all the time, that's always drinking, that's, hey, let's watch the game on Sunday. Okay, so you know that on Monday, Tuesday, you're going to feel like shit every time. Not only waste your Sunday when you should probably be doing something more constructive, but you're going to at least waste 3 days out of your week. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, because you're going to feel like Sunday you wasted it, 2 days to feel like shit.
That's right. That's right. I mean,
Just from the people that surround you.
just the addictive. I mean, when I hang out with addicts, I act like an addict,
Of course
right?
you
And the problem is today addicts show up as really clean cut people. Right,
100%.
they don't show up as junkies, right? The days of our brown bottle guys from Skid Row, they show the junkies in my life today show up in polo shirts and talk about drinking beer and watching football and eating crap all day. They're just as much junkies as those other guys that I hung out with, and my judgment is they don't mean they're
No.
stuck in it as well. They're in the same trap. They're in the same spot. They've been overwhelmed and maybe like you talk about, some of it feels a little malevolent. There might be something about it. By the way, you and I will talk about more of that. I want to get into real quick. We go everywhere, you and and I want to get into your masculinity. I want to get the 5 traits of great masculinity. Let's just dive into that.
The 5 virtues of a good man
Yep.
being courage, being a protector, being a provider, having temperance, and having faith.
Let's talk a little bit about what does it mean to have courage.
This is something I've debated with the pastor of my church here. Which one comes first? Faith? Do you need faith or do you need to have courage? And in today's world, in order to have faith, you need courage. So he's like, you know what? I can't debate you on this one. So courage to me, foundation. It is, if you want to be dependable, if people can depend on you, they need to know how you react in a very highly stressed situation. If you're a quitter, you're not courageous. That means they can't depend on you. And your family, your loved ones, need to be able to depend on you. So courage is the first thing that you need to build. This is the foundation to everything. And contrary to popular belief, courage is not a lack of fear. On the contrary, you're not courageous if you're fearless. If you're really fearless, you're mentally ill. There's something extremely wrong with you.
That's right.
But courage comes from a place of knowing there's danger, of being extremely scared, but saying, you know what, let's do it. Having balls to do what needs to get done when it needs to get done. And this doesn't necessarily mean that you need to jump into a house on fire to save little children. It could be to believe. I left my corporate job mainly because they wanted me to be vaccinated, and I said no. I told them I would not do it. I'm in better shape than all you motherfuckers, and it's not true that a bunch of fat people are going to tell me to take better care of my body. Fuck you, I'm not doing it. This was my choice. I spit on an extremely high-paying corporate job just because I believed it so much, and my girlfriend is the same. We're both the only people in both our families that are not vaccinated. I have no contact with my family nowadays because they could not believe I would do this.
Yeah.
But this is the choice that I made. I know what is true to me. What is true to you could be completely different, and that's the beautiful thing of being individuals. But stand for what you believe in. I stood
Courage,
for what
courage to have principles that you believe in and that you stand by.
100,000%, and whatever that means. If you lose everybody around you, but you are at peace with your heart, you've done the right thing, brother.
The courage to stand in the integrity of the man that you've created and the way it be. I love that. I love that.
100%.
And by the way, we'll do more diving into courage on some other podcasts. I want to really dive in. Let's get into protector. What do you mean by protector?
Well, it aligns exactly to what we were talking about. So to me, a man is meant to serve. It meant the two main things that a man does is to protect and to provide for his family.
Okay.
But protector is kind of an umbrella. In order to become a protector, you need to learn certain skills. You need to know how to defend yourself. You need to know how to handle a gun. You need to know how to handle different type of situation, like multiple attackers and stuff like that. And by calling it protector is what you want to become at the end. But that means you need to start treating your body with the respect that it deserves. You need to eat well. You need to start going to the gym. You need to be in great condition physically. You need to learn the skills. And ask anybody out there that has mastered their body, they will tell you that it is the first step to master your mind. Which is why, if you have the balls to do what needs to get done, to live the life that you want to live, because at the end of the day, this is one thing worth mentioning: the number one regret of the dying is to have lived the life others expected of them and not the life they wanted to live.
That's right. Every old man that I talk to, and I ask this question
Mhm.
a lot. What do you regret the most? It's
Yep.
never what they did. It's always what they didn't do. That which they wanted
100%.
to do, but they never did. The guy who wanted to be a comedian, the guy who wanted to be a rock star, the guy who wanted to travel this world, and now they're too old, too broke, too feeble to go do that, and they're missing out on the one who said, I lived this miserable life, and I wish I would spend more time being courageous. Every time I ask the question, what do you regret the most? It's always in some part of, oh, I didn't have the courage to go make up with my family members, or hey, I didn't have the courage to go bring my family back together. When you talk about courage, I think that there's a lot to that conversation, right? And protector, I think the same thing happens. And mentally protecting people, physically protecting people, emotionally protecting people. I think there's a whole bunch there. Let's get into the third one that you talk about. Let's get into
Being a
uh,
provider.
the provider.
And provider is as much financially as it is emotionally. And as we were talking about earlier, men built the society in which we live because they wanted their families to be protected and to be provided for. Everything that you see around you has been built by men that wanted to protect and to provide. And the beautiful thing about providing is, in today's world, it's less physical, more mental. So that means you can almost translate it in today's world as making money. Because if you want, there's two state of mind that you can be on: surviving or growing. Neither can exist at the same time. You pick and choose. It's one or the other. And if you're not providing for your family, that means you're putting them in a situation of survival. If they're in a survival situation, they will never grow. And as a man, that's unacceptable. That is on you to do better. And by doing better, I mean stop, that nonsense that kids are being told today, you should do what you're passionate about. No, absolutely not. That's selfish mentality. You're thinking about yourself. You're not thinking about the people you're supposed to be providing for. If some people are lucky and their natural talents align with their passion, some of us are lucky, but most of us are not. So if you have specific talents, and everybody's different, what are your natural skills? Develop those natural skills. Make the most money you can by developing those skills. Later on in life, when you've protected your family, your kids are not with you anymore, then start exploring what you really want to do, what your life purpose is all about. But until that point, you're supposed to be a provider. You're supposed to be a protector. So get your ass in the gym, start working out, start paying attention to what you eat, start learning the skills to defend your family, and the rest of the time provide for them.
Number
It is
four. What's number four?
temperance.
Temperance. What do you mean by temperance? Does that mean I'm boring? What does it mean to be tempered?
No, you're not boring, actually. I quite enjoy you.
No.
Just
What does it mean to be tempered? When you to be tempered, temperance. What does that mean? I mean, is it
tempered
I
is
don't
easy.
drink? What does it mean to be temperate? Temperance.
See it this way. You control your emotions or they control you.
Ah, there we go.
That's what temperance is all about. You control your emotions or they control you. And if you don't control your emotions, that means that you're easily controllable.
Finding in the middle of the storm, being able to adjust my sails rather than being blown around by the storm. Like to be in the storm of life, which life is very stormy right now. There's lots of stuff
Mhm.
coming at us. To be able to
100%.
stand in the storm and find a way to adjust my sails to the storm and ride the storm rather than the storm blowing me around. I love that. So temperance is being able to be able to control myself in the storms of life. I like that.
There's three things you control in life: your emotions, your actions, and your reactions. Everything else is outside of you, doesn't belong to you.
Perfect. Perfect. Next one is faith. Let's talk about a little bit about faith.
Faith, for the sake of argument, faith is a religious term. To most people, people think I'm a Christian. So if I talk about faith, you can think that I'm thinking religiously. At the end of the day, it does not need to be religious. And the way I explain it is, let's change the word faith by believe. How can you ever build self-confidence if you do not first believe in yourself? How can you ever build a meaningful relationship with someone if you don't first believe they are the person they say they are? And how can you ever find purpose if you don't believe that you have a reason to be here?
That's right. You know what? Finding faith, finding that peace for me is not religious. Knowing that there's a being greater than myself, I can feel and sense that. Does it have
Mhm.
to do with religion? Nope. For me, it has to do with I see the God in me bows to the God in you, and knowing that there's an energy that maybe religion has done a good job of. Maybe to me, it feels a little bit like 2-year-olds describing algebra, right? You know, the number line. You know, and I've studied religions around the world. I'm getting ready to go to Tibet right now and go spend time with the monks. And I'm like, all right, I'm leaving tomorrow to go to Tibet. And, you know, I can tell you that even in that experience, I have seen the greatest religious and spiritual folks. And the best I find is that we are this being called God, having this human experience, the one inside of each one of us that carries this gift of spirituality. I love that. I love as we discover your faith, find that inside of you that you believe in, that you hold true to yourself, the one that you share with your family, your community, and you know hold on to that. Right, whatever that faith is, I believe that you should own it, study it, argue for it, create it. You know, and to the point where you believe it completely. You know, today there are lots and lots of men who don't have faith, that don't understand, that walk around going, I don't have a belief in any way of being. They don't have that integrity to themselves. Nico, I believe that your show, the Nico Lagan show is great. Let's tell everybody how to find it. Let's find out how to find the podcast, how to find the show. Because your show, look, I want all of our viewers, I want you to listen. Go take some time right now and go listen to at least one show, and I promise you'll get addicted to it. Just get on the podcast, check out the show. How do we find it?
It's on my YouTube at Nico Lagan. But I post clips of my podcast everywhere. So if you have less than 8-second attention span, like most people do now, you can go you can go on Instagram, TikTok, wherever the platform my stuff is there. But I post new content that's not even on my show every day.
Well,
Like
Nico,
I'm a
Nico,
content creator.
so guys, I'll put the link down below. It's NICOLAGAN
Yep.
dot com. Go check out the website. It's got links to all of the social media.
Yep.
Look, it is something that's worth all of us are looking for the answer. Nico, you do a great job of hunting it down, discovering it, really diving into the dirty parts that we don't want to look at in ourselves. You're a gift to men. You're a gift to this world, right? I think better men make better lives for women, right? Great men, you know, make and support great families, and great families, you know, support each other. And the work that you do is legendary. The fact you're on the show blows me away. Thank you to all the people in the background who got us together. Your gift to the world, brother. I'm honored to have had you on the show.
Man, thanks for having me on. And one thing I want to leave on is, being a good man does not take away anything from women either. Being a masculine man enables women to be feminine. Men do not protect women because they are weak. We protect them because they matter.
Breathe that one in, brother. That's there. Like I got that. Like I get that. Like the women in my life matter. I am not they matter. They matter greatly, and
Mhm.
it's a gift having great women, great strong women in my life.
Agree. Amen to that.
Yeah, brother, that's awesome. I'm grateful to have you. Thank you for being on the show today. And audience, as always, if you could take a second right now and just like and subscribe, anything you heard on the show, please comment, like, argue. I don't care. Put whatever you want down below. Look, I always answer these things back to you. I don't care what you want to tell me, what you want to talk about. If you just loved it, take a second, say that, right? Just say, hey, I love it, because it means the world to me when I get some positive feedback as well. We do a lot of this work every day, and getting feedback from you guys means the world to me. So as always, we're grateful for you listening. Thanks.